Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Government Affairs Committee meeting for October. We've got a great guest speaker this morning. We'll get him started in just 1 minute. I want to just recognize we have a few guests with us today as well. In fact, we have one more guest, sir. I didn't get your name. Could you stand up just to introduce yourself real quick?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kelly Hale. I moved to the village about 6 months ago.
Well, welcome. And I've got Steve Carlstrom and Roland White, who is the chairman of the Public Works Committee, is also with us today as well. And Jim Zahn is here, who was a previous member of the meeting. So we all know who Jim is, and thank him for that. One other announcement, Sherry Nelson has withdrawn from the committee. Her husband passed away about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Very suddenly, and she's not exactly sure what she's going to be doing going forward. So unfortunately, she's had to withdraw from the committee, and that's left us a fairly big hole because she was the person keeping track and modifying our health services directory that we have available on the website and on the village website as well. So we'll have to be looking for someone to try to fill those shoes to try to keep that up to date. It's pretty up to date right now because she just modified it here just 2-3 months ago, so I think it's relatively up to date as of today at this point. So Bob Shoemaker did notify us that he was not going to be able to make the meeting. He has family in town from elsewhere and needed to be with them today. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the agenda out for approval yet. We're waiting to get a copy of the recording. It was supposed to have been posted on the YouTube channel, but that hasn't happened yet. Bob wanted to include a link to that and actually to check a couple of things on that recording to make sure the minutes were accurate. So we'll send those out for an email vote once we get that link and get that posted. So today with us, we have the Honorable Judge Jeff Airy from Saline County. Jeff, I've met with a couple of times. We've met on some broadband initiatives, but today he's going to come and talk to us a little bit about the progress on the Southwest Trail.
Well, I thought I got to introduce him.
Oh, well, you can introduce him if you want. Go ahead.
I was all ready for this.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Jeff has been a longtime friend, and his wife Betsy and I have worked together for 18 years, so I have a long history, and I'm proud of him. We're also welcome to have his mother with us today. So Glenda Airy is joined us as a guest, so she's getting to watch Jeff, and she said she wanted to sit across from you so she could look at you.
Keep an eye on
Keep an eye on you.
Keeping tabs.
Jeff has been in public service for 23 years, though, and served as mayor of Haskell for many years, and then is in his 3rd term as Saline County Judge. And so we're excited to have Jeff here to talk about the wonderful Southwest Trail that is going through Saline County.
Well, thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to be in the village. I hope everyone knows, if you don't know Karen, of course, she just said my wife and Karen have worked together for 18 years. So Karen and Mike are like family to Betsy and I, and she's an absolute wonderful person, and Mike is as well, and very community-oriented in anywhere that they live. So I promise you will see the assets that her and Mike will be to the community, and certainly a great representative. So it's just a pleasure.
I didn't even prompt you to say all that.
Yeah, I know.
That's nice.
But my mom is also lives here in the village and has for several years, and always love and enjoy coming over here to the village. And I'm a property owner myself, even though I don't live here. I have a lot here, and maybe one day I certainly will. We'll see how that goes. But again, thanks, Karen, for the invitation. She asked me to come and speak a little bit about the Southwest Trail. So I'm going to try to give just kind of a general overview, and then maybe we'll have some time for some questions if people want to get into specifics. Then maybe I'll have the answer, and we'll go from there. So the Southwest Trail is a 60-mile multi-use trail, and the idea would be that it would connect really 3 historic sites. Starting in Pulaski County, historic Little Rock Central High. Then in Saline County, the historic Saline County River, Old Saline River Bridge that goes over the Saline River. And then in Garland County, the Hot Springs National Park. And the idea would be to actually utilize existing road right-of-way, existing rail right-of-way, publicly owned lands, and then right-of-way that still has to be acquired in some places to build a continuous paved trail that would go through both urban, suburban, and rural areas of Pulaski County, Saline County, and Garland County. And it's a project that has been in the works as far as planning or talking about for years and years and years. It really started taking shape in the planning part of it probably in 2015 and 2016. So in 2015, partnering together, the counties of Pulaski, Saline, and Garland County commissioned an economic impact study of what kind of impact the Southwest Trail would have on the area if it was built. And you can read that entire study if you wish to. You can actually go to the Saline County's homepage, and right towards the bottom of that homepage, you'll actually see a link on there that's Southwest Trail Corridor Impact Study, if you want to wish to do that. But I want to share a couple of things that study said. Construction of the Southwest Trail would support 180 jobs, 13.7 million in property value increases, 6.8 million of that in Saline County alone, $160,000 a year in property tax revenue increases, 65,000 new visitors were estimated new visitors would come to the area for the trail, injecting nearly $8 million into the local economy. And then the big one would be, because of those new users, reduction in healthcare costs of over $18 million. Now, those are 2015 figures from that 2015 study, so we think that they're certainly very conservative considering we're in 2021 and that would be much higher today. But quite simply, this greenway would certainly be, or this trail or this project would be a job creator. It's going to increase property tax values. It's going to generate tax revenue. It would increase tourism, inject millions of dollars into the local economy, and reduce healthcare costs. That's a good project. There's been a lot of buzz in Arkansas over the last several years about the Razorback Greenway, a 28-mile project that goes right through the corridor of Fayetteville, Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale. It's been in existence for several years now. Recently, there was a study that was commissioned by the Walton Family Foundation that said that project annually, or for that region, had $137 million impact for that region. And that was a study that was commissioned by the Walton Family Foundation. We certainly believe that once the Southwest Trail is completed, it would have a similar kind of impact, or could have, for our particular region, especially when you think about it linking up with the Arkansas River Trail that's already very popular in central Arkansas now. Both of those projects together, along with what is going on in the central Arkansas area, which just now started, Keith has certainly been part of some of these meetings, but there is a Central Arkansas Regional Greenway Network that all of the counties within the Central Arkansas and those cities within that metropolitan area are working together to try to create this network. And it will have a huge impact, we certainly believe. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the alignment. And first of all, let me say, and I know I see press in the back of the room right now, so let me go ahead and say, this is what the alignment would be as I know it today. I certainly know a lot more about the alignment as it's presented in Saline County than I do Pulaski or Garland, so I may be a little off track. So, and the other thing is it could change, because I just talked about the right-of-way. Some of that right-of-way still has yet to be acquired, and so depending on how those negotiations go with different property owners, that alignment could change a little. And also, when you start getting engineers and design on the ground, you think one way when you're looking at a map, and then you realize you got obstacles you cannot overcome because of so many different reasons. It could change and move a little bit. But this will be pretty much the general alignment of the trail. So I'm gonna actually be using, and I wanted to share this with you too, this website, which was created several years ago when we first started, probably really in 2016, 2017, to try to be able to keep the public informed. And it's swtrail.transportationplanroom.com. And I'll say that again, swtrail.transportationplanroom.com. It's a great website. We try to keep it updated as much as we can, but it has the Southwest Trail logo. And as if you come on down, you're just gonna see anything from project updates, document and graphics, public meetings, when we have public meetings, we've had several over the last several years, and then frequent questions. But I'm gonna go into documents and graphics and come down to an interactive map. And then we're gonna zoom in, but before we zoom in, this is Pulaski County up here to the top right, if you can see my cursor, and we're gonna come through Saline County and then into Garland County into Hot Springs. So the trail is really going to start at those historic sites. Let's just start in Pulaski County at the historic Little Rock Central High, and we'll come down west through a existing rail right-of-way. And I meant to say at the beginning of this when I started, so I said 60 miles, about 14.8 or 15 miles of that will be in Pulaski County as we're coming through Pulaski County. And it'll come down an existing rail corridor right beside the state fairgrounds. This is the state fairgrounds. As you can see, come right along that existing rail right-of-way and go through what is right beside Southside Park and Interstate Park. If you've been down I-30 over towards downtown Little Rock, you've passed by this park a lot, but it's 60 acres of ball fields, softball fields, soccer fields. And it'll continue on past Interstate Park and start entering into the Fush Bottoms is what it's gonna do. And it's gonna cross Fush Creek and then continue on along I-30, not on the street, but off the street. I'm just saying it's gonna parallel that. Cross under the interstate, continue down all the way through the Fush Bottoms, through southwest, part of southwest Little Rock really, along this existing abandoned railroad right-of-way, all of which in Pulaski County in that area is already under the control of Pulaski County as far as they own that particular right-of-way. So it'll continue on into, and I'm sorry I went too far here, into Saline County. This is the Saline County line right here. So we're still on the existing abandoned railroad right-of-way, and we get into Saline County. Now, when we get into Saline County, especially when we're talking about the abandoned Rock Island Railroad, Saline County is not owners of that particular abandoned railroad right-of-way. It's different property owners all the way through the county. So we have to have some work to do with those property owners to try to acquire that right-of-way. But there's some, especially this corridor right here that we've talked to that are saying that they want to sit down and negotiate a sale. And so we'll enter into Saline County, be just south of the city of Shannon Hills on that Rock Island Railroad right-of-way, and continue all the way down to Germania Road. And this is kind of in the Sardis community. And then at Germania Road, we'll run parallel with Germania Road as part of an on-street road improvement. And we'll come on down to what is South Alexander, and then hit North Sardis Road and start entering into the bauxite community. We'll run right through where the Reynolds and Alcoa had all of those mines back in the day. A lot of history to Saline County and the state of Arkansas. Continue on through the bauxite community in the city of Bauxite on the Bauxite Highway, on into Benton, where Bauxite Highway actually turns into Edison.
So that's not on the railroad there, that's.
Now, right here,
The highway.
that's
area.
correct. You'll be paralleling, and
Okay.
the idea would be, you would be off the highway, but
Right.
be within the highway right-of-way,
right-of-way.
would be the idea. Now, this plan shows that we would jump back on the old Rock Island Railroad and come up this way, but the city of Benton has kind of abandoned that, from what I understand, and they're gonna continue to parallel Edison Avenue
Okay.
all the way into what is considered Benton proper, I'm gonna say, but you're actually in the city limits back here. But, this shows it to continue. They've changed their mind on this part too, which is, I think is a good reason why. So they're gonna continue on Edison Avenue down to about Second Street, and then they'll parallel off of Edison onto Second Street, so they can get on. There's an old abandoned another railroad corridor right here that follows this live one.
Yeah.
It's beside it, and so they'll bring the trail down that particular railroad corridor down to the Saline
To
River.
the river.
So here's the Saline River right here. And at this point, they'll have to turn and go upriver along the side of the river to what is going to be the old River Bridge. So the Saline County Old River Bridge is actually, it was actually built in 1891. It's two 130-foot Pratt truss spans is what it is. And it is one of the oldest iron truss bridges that are still in existence. And once it's actually completely redone and installed back, it will actually be the oldest bridge in its original location in existence in the state of Arkansas. So it will actually be a tourist destination all to itself, I promise you. In addition to that, there is a nonprofit group called the Saline Crossing, who has acquired property on both sides of the river, several acres, I don't know, but it's somewhere between 5 and 10, I believe, with the idea of one day building a regional park in the area. We certainly think that's going to gain momentum once the bridge and the trail comes through. So it could end up being a very, very nice area that's really, really close to downtown Benton. So the trail would continue on River Road, and this would be an on-street improvement onto River Road, across Highway 67, and now you're just basically in the city limits of Haskell. But you're not actually in the city limits, but you're skirting it. And you're going to go on Pawnee Drive all the way to the interchange of 70 and I-30. You would come under I-30 and then start parallel, running alongside, at least to be the south side of I-70, sorry. I'm sorry, I-70, but State Highway 70. If you travel I-70, you'll notice, if you look, the trail would actually go about 20 to 30 foot off the shoulder of the road, down towards the ditch. You'll notice in a lot of places you'll still see it. There's a flat spot there. Saline County partnered with the Highway Department when they did that highway expansion and improvement a couple of years ago to do a lot of that base work in anticipation that that's where the Southwest Shell would run. So a lot of the work in this 7-mile area that goes from along Highway 70 has already been done. And so it would stay on 70, or not stay on 70, but follow Highway 70 all the way down to what is called Highway 88. If you don't know where that is, right here. It's basically the Lonsdale community. So turn it off into the Lonsdale community. It'll veer off 70, and then it will follow Highway 88 through the Lonsdale community, and then eventually Highway 88 becomes Spring Street, which runs all the way into the city of Hot Springs. And this particular area, if you've driven this area, it's very rural, and it's very, very pretty. It's hugely scenic. It's going to be probably some of the prettiest spots of the trail will be through this area, if you've ever driven that before. If you haven't, take a drive through it. It's a nice drive. A big part of that Spring Street is actually a gravel road now, but I think the plan is that it would become a paved road with on-street facilities for biking or walking. So it would continue on into the city of Hot Springs, and it'll come through, here is where am I at? I've lost myself.
And you're still on Spring.
All right, so here's Cutter Morning Star, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's showing, sorry to bring you around here, but I think they've abandoned this idea that there was an old railroad corridor that runs all along here, but a lot of the property owners expressed they weren't willing to work with anyone on this project, so that's the reason it follows Spring Street. I think they've abandoned this idea and they're gonna stay on Spring Street, but I'm not exactly sure on that, but that's what I've understood. So they would stay on Spring Street until they get right in this area around, what's the name of this road right here? Mill Creek Road. And then they would veer off, come down through this existing corridor until you get to Grand. And then they would cross Grand at that, I think this is a signal. They would cross onto Convention Boulevard and all the way to Malvern Avenue. And then you would basically be, you're at Hot Springs National Park. So that's just really kind of the general overlay. I could really just open it up for questions or about anything that y'all have, or about the route, any part of that route, or.
What type of surface is it gonna be? I
Okay.
mean,
So, let me back up here. So you heard me mention that a while ago that this is gonna go through both urban areas, it's gonna go through suburban areas, it's gonna go through rural areas. And so depending on where you're at in any of those three counties, there could be a different application and kind of a different look. So if you notice here, this is not saying it's gonna be this way, but an urban trail section where you could have, 2 lanes going each way with an off-street improvement, behind the drainage area. It would be concrete, 10 to 14 foot wide in that kind of application. If you're on the abandoned railroad right-of-way, then it would be, again, concrete and the 14 foot wide. There could be places, especially in the Fush Bottoms, where you may end up on a boardwalk because of the terrain that you're on, that would actually be made out of either, probably not wood, but some kind of composite material or something like that, probably. So you could end up with that kind of application. This one is talking about typical 2-lane road, rural areas. A lot of county roads may be this way, some cities, where you just have a 2-lane road with an off-street improvement 10 to 14 foot wide on the backside of the ditch.
right.
So anywhere that there could be also some applications,
Yeah, because I was thinking about Pawnee Drive.
right here, there could be some applications where you end up with it being part of an on-street improvement where it's just asphalt and with painted lines or some kind of barrier to try to indicate between the path and vehicle traffic.
Right.
So it's gonna have a different look. But for the most part, it'll either be, for the most part, it should be concrete if we're building certainly an off-street improvement. If it's an on-street, it's gonna obviously be asphalt.
So are they gonna try to keep it 14 feet wide for each area?
The idea, the plan is hopefully have it 14 foot wide. Now, if you're part of an on-street improvement, then it's probably gonna be 5 foot, and it would probably, very well may be 5 foot with 2 lanes going each way.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Like 5 foot on one side of the road, 5 foot on the
Oh,
other.
then you'd have one on the other side.
Right,
Okay, all
right.
right.
Right,
Yeah, because I was thinking about Pawnee Drive,
Right.
especially because I know Pawnee's not
right,
real wide anyway.
right,
So-
right. That's right. I mentioned 2016 was a big year. The significance of that was Saline County, Pulaski County, and Garland County partnered again and made application for a FLAP grant. And FLAP grant stands for Federal Land Access Program. And the idea was to link those historic sites. Certainly Little Rock Central High is an historic there's federal
National
museum
park.
there, it's a national park, and then, of course, Hot Springs National Park. And so by linking those two, and that's where those came into the picture, we were able to get a grant to start both the environmental process that has to be done and the design of the project that paid for this website and done all of this particular work, and then a whole lot of other work that's ongoing. We were successful in getting that grant, and that's what kind of really got us going off the ground. And then certainly Saline County and Pulaski County have been pretty aggressive over the last several years in making applications to both TAP grants, which are Transportation Alternative Program grants, and then STBG grants, which I'm not going to tell you what that means because I don't know.
Surface transportation.
Thank you, Keith.
Grants.
He sits on the Metroplan board, which administers those funds, and so that's I never took the time. I just know STPG grant. Oh, another grant opportunity. Let's make applications. Let's
do it.
And we've been pretty successful in getting that. They didn't really start focusing with those funds until 2020, and we made application and got a $3 million grant to help purchase right-of-way for this project in Saline County. And then recently, we just were awarded another grant that's actually going to pay for, that would construct the first part of the trail in Saline County that goes from Pulaski County down to Germania Road. That section that I showed you that would be part of the old Rock Island Railroad, we got a grant about $1.6 million. It was just awarded within the last month or so. So first thing that has to happen is that $3 million grant to purchase right-of-way. We got to purchase the right-of-way, obviously, before we start constructing the trail. But that's certainly the plan. And then the TAP grants have been very instrumental, and we've been able to get several of those in the Old River Bridge project. So the bridge has actually already been taken down and disassembled. We took it to the road department, and it was just recently awarded another a bid project to a bridge builder renovation guy who's going to take those old parts, clean those up, repair any ones that can be repaired, and actually make the ones that can't be repaired, which is a kind of a special skill, and not too many people in the country that can do that, but this guy's an expert out of it. So we've actually last week loaded all of those parts up on a couple of big trucks, and they're on his way right now to Michigan, where he's going to rehab those and then bring those back. Hopefully in the spring, March, I think, is the deadline. Yes.
You don't have to talk about them in detail or pull the map back up or anything, but just a simple question. Have y'all already identified and got some plans for some access and egress and parking points every 3, 5, 7 miles or whatever?
So that's kind of ongoing. We have talked in general about it, but we the powers that be, meaning, you got 3 counties, so you got 3 county judges, and you got probably 8 mayors, so the different cities, they're responsible for deciding where that trail alignment will go and where those trailheads go. But as we're all applying for grants, and let me say this, every elected official, our plan is to always build and buy whatever, if we're buying right-of-way or building sections of the trail, to utilize grants that are out there to do so. And so when we're thinking about projects, I'm going to get to your question. I'm going to get your answer. It's taking me a long way around, but it's 60 miles long. This project's you're not going to be one contract that's going to build 60 miles of this trail. This trail is going to be built in sections, and it could take years to complete. And so when we talk in a plan, just like the grant that I just talked about that we were successful in getting for that part of the trail that's going to go from Pulaski County into Saline down to Germania, I've had to coordinate a lot with Judge Hyde in Pulaski County because he was putting in a grant for the other section that's going to go from Pulaski County leading into me. And so we want to make sure that we build sections of the trail that have trailheads on each end or access points, because we don't want a trail just stopping or ending in the middle of nowhere. So while we might not have those planned out, that's how we're going about trying to build the trail to make sure that we do not have endpoints that don't make any sense. So some of them are natural. So, I could point those out, but.
And I'll just briefly raise one other consideration.
Sure.
I've ridden some trails around in my life, and the trails that are more popular are the ones that go through rural, peaceful areas, or along a creek, or they go through an area that's got something of interest or attractive to pay attention to. The least desirable trails are those that just sort of run along the side of a highway, and you just feel like you might as well be sitting in your car. There's nothing, different or relaxing about it. And so if this group that's doing this project is not already looking at this, they may start looking at the regions that are in the more urban areas. And I noticed in Pulaski and in Saline, a lot of it is running along the interstate or major roads and through urban areas. They may try to look at some small ways, doesn't have to be anything big, but some small ways to just create a little bit of interest and attractiveness. Work with a garden club about every quarter mile planting a tree, or, something that's not even anything any more than that. But if there's like a tree every quarter mile, then for the bikers, that at least creates like a marker, some of those kinds of things. So, for future consideration.
Sure. All extremely valid points. There's a lot of different reasons that, over the last, like I said, 2015, 2016, we started working on this project. There's a lot of different reasons why the route that we're showing you now came about. Some of that is because we've talked to different property owners who own certainly sections of the Old Abelian Railroad right-of-way, which seems like that's the natural place to put it. It would be great, right? But some of those property owners are not going to work with us. And so I think I can tell you as an elected official in Saline County, which, by the way, is 27.3 miles of this trail is going to go through Saline County. We have the biggest part. And none of that railroad right-of-way was within our control. We don't own it. So I have to work with property owners. If they don't want to sell, I can tell you, I don't think it's not going to be a very popular project if I have to go through eminent domain to try to take the property. It's just not going to work. And that's not something I'm willing to do. So I either need to try to work with them or work around them, find another way. The other thing is that this is more than just a trail. We view this as an alternative transportation route. And so there's also reasons why we try to touch every once in a while or get close to more of a urban setting, because we believe that it's important to try to make that economic impact and impact businesses as well. So there's a lot of different things why the route got there, but totally agree with you certainly on the aesthetics of working with local advocacy groups to try to make it pretty, to make it a nice place, where you want to go and want to visit. Totally agree.
I think with Haskell, it's kind of neat to see a walking trail that could take you to downtown Benton for an ice cream cone that,
Yeah.
instead of, having to go all the way around
Yeah.
by vehicle. And I think it's really neat to be able to connect that, because they were so close to downtown Benton across the river. And then when the river bridge went away,
Yeah.
that community was cut off except for having to go around to the interstate.
Yeah. A lot of times, and we get questions a lot, especially, certainly if you're a hardcore cyclist, you're
going.
You're going. And there'll be people that'll ride the trail that are going from one end to the other, that are going from Little Rock all the way to Hot Springs. But we know from our research, it tells us that, some of the biggest use of this trail will be very short distances, mile, 2 miles, connecting someone from one neighbor to another, one community to another. It'll be a kid getting leaving on a bike and going from his house to a ballpark or to a school, or believe it or not, people going to work and doing either walking or biking. And so there was actually a lot of thought into this logo, and if you'll see it, you'll see these 4 things down at the bottom, which is somebody on a bicycle, somebody that's running, somebody that's actually hiking, you can't see that, but they have a backpack on, and then, a parent pushing a baby stroller, because that's what's gonna happen on this trail. I mean, it's truly gonna be a multi-use trail that connects communities. That'll be its biggest use, will be in short sections.
Well, in real estate transactions now, when you're looking at property, they give properties a walkability score. And most people moving from other areas want to know what the walkability score is for a home that they're purchasing.
Yeah,
Can they walk to a restaurant? Can they walk to,
sure.
services? So I think it's gonna be neat.
Other questions, comments?
I know it's hard to determine, but just emphasis of long-term timeline as this kind of develops. So we think 20 years realistically, what's kind of the visionary approach to the development of this? And is either end of it started, under construction?
So timeline-wise, I don't have an answer to that, Michael, to be honest with you. The Razorback Greenway, and we're very fortunate in making an application and receiving a Tiger grant, when they called them Tiger grants back in the day, a federal grant. And I don't remember exactly what the grant was, but it was tens of millions that was able to really expand, their timeline. We've actually put in for, if they don't call it Tiger anymore, it's actually, I think it's called Build Grant. There was another one. Anyway, we've made 3 applications for something like that, hoping to get a big influx of money that could really make it work, but we haven't been successful in any of those. So, like I said earlier, I think it's going to be built in sections, and what that timeline could look like, I really just don't know. It's going to be how successful the different communities are in getting
Grants and that.
those grants. So as far as sections being built, in Pulaski County, I know there's a bridge projects, there's 3 different bridge projects going on sections of the old abandoned railroad right-of-way that they already own and have owned for years. And so that part of the project is going on. The only part of the project that's kind of ongoing is with regard to the Southwest Trail in Saline County is the bridge that I talked about, the Old River Bridge, that part. I think the first section that will probably be built could be that area that goes from Pulaski County into Saline County down to Germania. And so that section, coupled with what Pulaski County's doing, is probably 7 miles or so, I think, is what I remember, together. But that's
Where it's
kind
at.
of,
Okay.
Is there a thought as to what the Saline County part of it will cost?
so the total estimate for the total trail, 60 miles of it, right now is $42 million, and that does not include acquiring the right-of-way. That's the cost today. I can tell you, part of the economic impact study that was done back in 2015, John, said that the cost would be $22 million. So, like I said to Michael, this is gonna take years to probably build this, so that cost, as construction costs go up, as catfish goes up,
Right.
we expect cost, but right now, that's the estimate right now, it's 42 million. If we had 42 million, we think we could get close to building the entire trail, 60 miles.
And let me just, from the village perspective, it's something, this is 10 years that would ever, the kind of impact, because we've looked at it and in the overall Green Wales Conference, how do you connect the village to this? And it's not easy to the Southwest Trail. Is it easier going down the new extension? Would that be the best way to do it? Or would you come down 128? There's really not an easy answer right now. So, I mean, the GAC of 2030 probably needs to be sitting around thinking about how do we connect into this, but it's not going to happen for many years.
I'm glad you brought that up, Keith, and if y'all have just a couple more minutes, I mentioned a while ago that there was an effort going on in the metropolitan area to create a Central Arkansas Regional Greenways Plan. They've already held one big meeting on this, and so they're looking for people to bring ideas to the table. But anyway, let me play this short video about the Central Arkansas Regional Greenways Plan. I hope they have sound.
Hello, I'm Tab Townsend, Executive Director of MetroPlan, the metropolitan planning body of Central Arkansas. We work with local jurisdictions, RDOT and Rock Region Metro, on transportation and infrastructure projects around the 4 county Central Arkansas region. Those counties comprise Faulkner, Saline, Lono, and Pulaski County. So what does this project entail? The MetroPlan Board of Directors voted in 2020 to dedicate $55 million of its direct federal funding, that's half of its next 10 years' funding, to a regional greenway network. The goal is to connect many of the cities in Central Arkansas to each other, as well as to the Arkansas River Trail that we're standing on today. That planning effort is underway right now. So why is this project important? This regional greenway network will not only provide connectivity, which in turn will lead to active mobility transportation options, but may also lead to improved health of our residents and generate tourism dollars for your hometown. But we need to hear from you. The project has a website where you can add notes, drop points of interest, or draw lines on a map to call attention to preferred routes or areas of concern or opportunities. The website will also house public surveys as well as project information and public meeting dates where you can come learn more about the project and provide valuable feedback. I hope you'll consider getting involved. This will be a network that will one day connect us where we live, work, and play. If you're a walker, runner, skater, or cyclist, we want to hear your thoughts. Please come join us. Together, let's build a regional greenway network.
So I don't know, try to answer Keith's question, I don't know where that special route would be necessarily to
Yeah.
try to hit the Southwest Trail. And
It's either 128 or you actually come down Highway 7 or something that way, back into Hot Springs. So-
probably so.
But again, that's not for many years, but it's one of those things that the discussion was had, you kind of look at it and say, you got to get this main Southwest
Oh, yeah.
Trail in, and then how could the village connect in? And it's down the road.
Yeah.
But certainly that ought to be kept in the back of our minds.
Yeah,
as
back
a
in the minds of the
project,
Government Affairs Committee.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's really 128 is the best one right now out there. And
Yeah,
that,
because that would be, because it's going to come right through that
here's
intersection.
128.
yeah, and 128 is all Garland County except for a little sliver that slices into Saline County.
right. Right. Or is there an opportunity to take it off-road and come down and somewhere?
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
Come back through Owensville or something, and
But certainly something
go
that
back through some farmland.
need to be some thought put into, you know? And, there also, I don't know, is there an opportunity, maybe not because of terrain, but
I think the terrain is just too.
yeah, going another way or
going
trying
the
to
other
tie
way,
into the
yeah.
backside of,
Yeah.
of West Little Rock, might be too much.
Thank you.
Absolutely, you bet.
Did you do okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
She clapped for him.
Well, thank you, guys. It was a pleasure always is a pleasure to be here and come speak and hang out in the village, especially with my mom.
There you go.
So-
Did she cook you breakfast this morning?
No,
Are you taking her to breakfast?
I can.
I was waiting for lunch.
Thank you, Greg.
Waiting
Yeah,
around
thanks
for
so much.
lunch.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And now he's early.
Yeah, he's on.
Artfully Baked could probably do something for you.
Yeah, you go by and get coffee, we get coffee, pastries and stuff. Open early over there. Thanks so much, Judge Airy, for coming and speaking to us about the Southwest Trail. I think it's a pretty exciting project. I wholeheartedly agree that it'll be a big economic impact, for everyone in this area. And, certainly for us to keep an eye on and see how we might be able to, as an active retirement community, we need to be active to figure out how we can be part of this. Because I think it will be, and maybe another option might be on the new connector, maybe, I
Well,
don't know.
that's what, in the new connector
Yeah,
down the
I mean,
road, and stuff like that.
There's,
That's very good.
yeah, I mean, that might be another alternative
Yep.
way to get there, so I think that those are all great ideas, so. Okay, well, thank you very much, and we
Absolutely,
look
thank
forward to
you.
having you come again and speak to us sometime again in the future.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
All right,
it.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
So we'll continue on with the rest of our meeting. I know that Joni is not in town. I guess, John Paul, you're here to come to speak on behalf of the board for us today?
Sure. She is out of town, a family matter, and won't be back until the end of the week. She sent her regrets for not being able to be here today. What we've been doing lately in the village is working on the assessment increase campaign, and that kicks off here very shortly. The ballots will be mailed out on the 8th of October, and they're due back by the 15th of November, when the meeting will be to determine our whether it passes or not. Any of you that have lots and can vote, we are going to ask you to vote yes on this. And we've been in the middle of budgets for the last month and a half, 2 months, and the F&P committee has been in the middle of it studying what we're requesting, and two versions of it, one with an assessment increase and one without an assessment increase. And it's the difference is basically capital towards the projects they've been talking about: roads, culverts, water lines, sewer lines, everything that is 50 years old now that needs repair that we need to catch up with. And that is the bulk of the difference. Plus, there are some payroll differences too that we have to compete with nowadays in just keeping people on the payroll. And Greg will tell you it's been very tough in finding help to even man the trash vehicles, the restaurants. It's a chore every day. So we're going to need to think about our payroll in the future and how we compete in today's world. So those are the things that we've been working on in the village, along with strengthening our gates. We continue to look at ways to prevent tailgating in. We're looking at new signage on all the gates. We've speeded up the gates, the closings, and we're taking security very seriously. That's a big part of it now. And those are the major things that we're working on in the village.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I was telling someone last night that I thought the POA had done a good job with respect to getting information out to the village about the assessment vote in terms of the emails and the graphics that the task force had put together. And the people looked at me and said, "What emails? What percentage of villagers actually are on the email blast?" These people didn't even know that it existed.
I think the last count we had in the, we checked to see how many are open. It's about 50%, 46 to 50% that open the emails and actually look at it. We also, on the Friday Digest, have, I think Paul Sage in the marketing department has done a wonderful job with the Friday Digest. And they're getting about 50% opening on that. Now, the different individual tabs vary. I know the dining tab is the #1 tab that people open whenever they go to that. But the F&P committee has done a wonderful job in getting out the need for the assessment increase, and you're right, talking about it. But unfortunately, there's some people just don't open the email or look at it. They've got good brochures going out in the mail along with the campaign that's going out. They've got a trifold and other things that explain the need. And the other thing that the board is going to do next week, at their meeting is develop a policy that will be, need a supermajority in the future to change from another board, in that the monies for the assessment increase will go for what we've said it will go for. It will go for the infrastructure and to take care of what we have rather than new for the considerable near future.
My question really went more not to the number of emails that were opened, but the number of people in the village who got the email versus the number of
Bob,
people.
there are approximately 13,000 email addresses at the POA,
Right.
roughly, 13,000.
But how many of them
email
sign up to get?
addresses. That I couldn't tell you.
I
but
can get that for you. I don't know that number off the top, but it's considerable.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
If you're not receiving these emails, what can be done to see about getting them? Because I don't get them.
Oh, if you just call the number, they'll research and find out why you're not
Or
getting
you
them.
can go to the website, the Explore the Village website, and sign up.
I tried that.
It didn't work?
It didn't work.
If you'll
Evidently,
call.
I mean, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is evidently, because I tried that.
That's
In
interesting.
the 15 years we've been here, numerous occasions. And for some reason,
Well-
now, I will say this, just a point of fact, my IT guy, at my former company, his famous statement to me is, "Don't touch it. I'll come in and turn your computer on and I'll sign you up." And because I have this, computers and I have this thing. But, like I said, somewhat of a defense of the people that aren't getting these blasts is that I think I'm one that would open them and read them, to be honest with you.
A lot of
And
times,
I've tried to sign up, I've called the number, I've tried to get it all, and it still is successful.
well, a lot of times we find that, the emails could be going to your spam or your trash. And if you don't look in there occasionally,
I check that,
okay.
I check that on a regular basis.
There could be a letter off place. There could be a dot off place. And if you'll call them, they'll research it for you and find out why
Okay.
you're not getting it, but they'll be happy to do that. And we do it every day.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if you don't get it, call me. I'll make sure that gets taken care of.
He'll forward his to you.
John Paul, one of the things, that we had recommended to the board was to start looking at, as Judge Airy said, grants, and things that are happening at the federal government level for broadband and other things, as the Congress is moving forward on a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure program. We should really be looking at that and seeing if there are ways that we could potentially harvest some of that money. As we recommended to the board, we feel that this is something the POA needs to have someone on staff focused on those grants and potential grants that we could apply for, because there's going to be a lot of money. The state just hired a broadband consultant
Yeah.
to focus on those grants. We need to be working with all of those people, and we need someone from the POA staff, I think, to be looking at that.
Well,
as we
I
recommend.
think,
wanna
John
talk?
Paul, yeah, Will Rainwater, who was hired as the IT manager, has been given that task.
Okay.
So in fact, Will and myself and Judge Airy, and we're down at the Connectivity Summit, 2-3 weeks ago. Will's there, he was getting up to speed on what is available. They gave a good idea of all the money that's coming. So, yeah, it is, but we are still challenged by our
Gates.
Status.
status. But the key on any of the broadband dollars is then we need to work with the providers. And I'll give you an update when we get the broadband of what something is going on right now. So,
Well, the other thing that we've done, he touched on it, is we've really strengthened the IT department, and we've hired 2 new people. And Will brings more experience than we've ever had to this job, and that's one place that we've really beefed up.
That's great. Great. All right, we'll move on. Next one, Keith, is broadband.
Okay.
So-
Just kind of an update on something on broadband that's going on. I talked about the Connectivity Summit there. And we've all heard in the paper, and John Paul's talked about it, is First Electric. First Electric is moving very fast. And in fact, I was in a meeting with them this week along with the POA, with Jason Temple and the POA. probably moving faster than we can accommodate them. I mean, we're talking that they're ready to come in and start boring here in the next month or so. And we're talking not just one or two holes at any time. It was a lot of holes. So that's all being coordinated. What was trying to be worked out of that, and I'm waiting for a response back from Senator Sample, is how potentially money could go to First Electric, but then be flowed to the POA to handle some of the POA functions, specifically locating all the utilities, the water and sewer lines, and then coming back and fixing what gets broken after, because once you start boring, you're gonna break some stuff. That is a limiting factor right now for the POA, but that's trying to be worked to see if, the POA doesn't have the money to hire on extra crews, but could it all work? The challenge is the POA has the liability for those because we're the utility owner of that. So there's a whole challenge going on there. But just so you know, that's trying to be worked with First Electric, with the state, specifically working with our elected officials to see if we can work something out there. So
To show you the magnitude of the problem, he's saying they're coming in fast. They really want to start before the end of the year and be finished within 10 months.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's every home in Saline County in the village. So you can imagine the magnitude of the boring and everything that's going to go on.
Yeah.
So we are going to need help because we don't have the staff to repair it nor the money to do it right now. So we have to have help in some way.
So, but that is, I mean, it's moving fast. In fact, when this meeting's over, I just have to call someone at First Electric to see what else the status is. But again, it's trying to get, First Electric is going after grant money. We can't go after the grant money because we're not the provider. They're the provider, but could we as the city garner some of that back, area there, so.
Okay.
So that's where things kind of stand on broadband, so.
Great. So what do you think, I mean, you haven't talked to Senator Sample. I mean, what do you think the prognosis is of us being able to get money from the county to help backfill some of those costs?
You're not gonna get it from the county, and I'll
Yeah.
talk about when we get to the county stuff on ARP, because that's a whole separate thing
Yeah.
out there. But,
Okay.
if you just wanna talk
So you're talking
broadband.
about money coming back from the grant money that First Electric is getting to help?
Yes, how
come
First
back?
Electric, can they, and this is where the Senator Sample is trying to get read how it would be First Electric or First to Connect, which is the actual,
Their subsidiary.
they go after this huge amount of money that's coming into the state and get a piece of that because to expand really quick out there, and then as the POA,
Yeah.
contracts out for locating crews and repair crews, can they invoice it back to, it's interesting. And we just don't know if it's gonna be legal.
Actually, if that can be worked out some way, given our status, that would be a little crack in the wall that may open up in the future.
Right.
And so I think that it's really important. If we can't get through this little crack, and then we're just like an island on our own, and that's the way we're gonna have to treat it. But this will be one way, if we can get that crack, then we can use that to say, well, status.
Yeah, and
Status quo.
the key is who's the owner of us going for it, we're not the owner of that utility. First Electric, Suddenlink, AT&T, they're the utility provider. They go after the funding. We as the quasi-city are not going after the funding.
But the key would be state money coming into the village.
It's actually federal money through the state
Right.
coming in.
I mean, that's a crack.
That's what's trying to work out. It's not gonna be the same way if you start thinking roads or anything like that. You got a whole different, because we're the owner of the roads. And it gets even,
Well, we have AT&T now. I mean, we've already got
Yeah, but-
services that are coming in that are,
but they're not to the level
no,
across the
not to what
village.
this would be.
Yeah, I mean, First Electric, when you look at their structure and, they put out their pricing plan out there for, was it 200, 400, 1 gig?
1 gig, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going 25, 3 to Benifar.
Right.
If they're going to Benifar, they're going 100,
Right.
because, or 200, 200.
It's similar to when I went with the broadband committee from Hot Springs, we went to Chattanooga to visit with their electric utility there, and this is exactly what they did. They have fiber runs to every house that has service from them. And they run full gig Ethernet. They're running an active optical network, so I mean, it's can reach extreme speeds for both business and residential use.
We need that.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Jason just sent an email to First Electric, talking about the meeting the other day and estimated the cost of all the construction for the year and what he would need, $738,000.
Yeah, that's probably why I got the text from First Electric. They want to talk to me about it.
Yeah,
So,
that just happened.
yeah.
So we
But
get $1
that's
million
fine.
bucks, we'll be in good shape,
So,
right? Because 738,000 this week, and
Yeah.
next year it'll be $1.2 million.
Anybody bring their checkbook today?
Exactly. Okay, so we'll move on from that. David, you want to talk about Hot Springs? You were kind of leading the effort, I think, on the Hot Springs side.
Not a lot. First of all, the city manager said that for the year through the end of June, their sales tax revenue was up 17.5% over last year. So in that regard, things are still looking good and improving. The one sort of interesting discussion that was had in recent meetings was about 2 months ago, there was a presentation about the possibility of an amphitheater at the Majestic location. And then in the next board meeting, after that meeting, it was raised that maybe the city's noise ordinance should be revisited. And so then in the next meeting following that one, there was actually a presentation about proposed changes and modifications to the noise ordinance. And certainly it was extremely impressive that a department was asked to do something and actually produced a result and was ready to give a report within a 2-week period of time. So that in and of itself, when you're reading tea leaves in government, is meaningful. The report about making changes to the noise ordinance made a few changes regarding noise at certain time periods, decibels of noise at certain time periods in residential areas, and also decibels of noise at different time periods in commercial areas. And then after all of that was presented, it was then stated that certain venues, such as Oaklawn Park, Magic Springs, and any possible new developments at the Majestic site would be exempted from any part of the noise ordinance. There were then some citizens that spoke up about the fact that this new proposal had not been posted publicly, that they, the citizens, had not had the opportunity to take a look at and consider the proposed changes, and could the discussion be tabled until at least the next meeting so that citizens would have an opportunity to take a look at it. There was a council vote taken on that, and that request was denied for public consideration. And then there was another vote taken by the council to approve the new elements of the noise ordinance. So I think that all of those behaviors and all of those actions send a pretty clear message about their intended direction.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay, cool. Kurt, you have anything you'd like to add today?
I'll
You
defer
gonna
to
you gonna
Keith.
defer to Keith?
Yep,
Okay.
he's got more information than I do.
Okay, Keith?
Okay, from the county perspective, first of all, and I'll step back to Metro Plan, and Sam, I know you're the legislative folk liaison there. You know, both the House and the Senate, this whole redistricting, the congressional redistricting is getting interesting. If you want to watch interesting TV, watch them, you know. But from the Metro Plan perspective, the county judges of the 4 counties plus all the mayors unanimously sent a resolution to all the elected or the representatives and senators in Faulkner, Pulaski, Saline, and Lonoke County, requesting them not to break up 2nd District and break out Pulaski County, that they thought it was important that these counties stay together as the central Arkansas region. So that was a pretty good discussion about, keeping central Arkansas together, because there's many proposals to break up Pulaski County. But all the judges and the mayors came out and publicly have passed that along to their elected representatives. I mean, that's been passed to Bill Sample and Richard McGrew, since there's a piece of it in Saline County, but when you start talking Lanny Fight and Kim Hammer and all the folks up in that was all passed to them. That from the perspective of keeping central Arkansas together as one piece. So we'll see what happened there. They may or may not listen on that. As far as the county, big thing is the American Rescue Plan dollars. The Quorum Court formally, from Saline County, formally put out the request for proposal guidance. And the POA has it, as well as all the other people that are going to start applying for this money. Saline County has $23.4 million that will be distributed in the next 40 years or so, because it can be distributed out to 2024. The proposals go the gambit. They are focused on broadband. There's broadband, sewers, and water are the infrastructure ones. Broadband's not going to get a lot of carry with Saline County because there's state money. So people are going to be focused on that. Where that leads to is from the Saline County side, and this is what John Paul's with Jason's working, is how do you look at expanding the sewer capability into the Cranford area, the Health Mart area out the East Gate, and then out the West Gate too, because those would be eligible for American Rescue Plan dollars. So those both, and John Paul and I and Rollins out in the audience and Jason went on the Garland County side and talked with the Garland County judge, and that proposal's already been submitted to them. And now Jason's working to work on the proposal out the east side. So that's where the focus of American Rescue Plan, but there is a set procedure in Saline County that the person has to go through, or the entity has to accomplish to apply, and then it's going to be scored by the county senior, or the county judge, the county comptroller, and the county attorney, and they will bring that forward to the Quorum Court, and in Saline County, the Quorum Court will make the decision on how those funds are spent. So that's a little different than the other county. They have a little different methodology, but I just want to let people know that's how it's going to go. So it's very incumbent on the POA, and John knows this, to make a good presentation. What is incumbent on the Government Affairs Committee, and I'll put this on your guys' back, is Quorum Court people or members get squishy when there's a lot of people standing in there speaking about something. But I would challenge GAC to generate, once this proposal's out there for Saline County Court, to get some people to come over and talk in support of it. That is key, because you know, if we want to try to compete for some of this money, we got to show interest on it. So I kind of challenge that out there.
You might also point out, excuse me for interrupting, but you also might point out that Cooper has a role to play in this
Yes.
also. Because he's got to let
Let
the
it happen.
connection go outside the border.
And so, I mean, that's all part of the process of making sure the Cooper organization is happy, but what it really is looking at is, it's outside the village, but it directly impacts us inside the village. So if you want to have something better on the east end, this is something to help out that development out there. Because sewers, are important to developers, so. And lastly, roads, there's really not, you see all the construction, it's moving along, they're tearing up as much as they can. I don't know what else they can tear up around, on Highway 5 and there's a little more on Highway 5 they can tear up if they wanted to, but Highway 7, I don't know what else they could tear up on Highway 7, so, but it's out there, so that's it.
All right, thanks, Keith. I mean, I think that, there's certainly a lot of activity going on right now, so it's important. I think one of the other things that we need to focus on too, and it's part of our old business, is that economic impact study. And I know we've requested more information from the POA on new construction and buildings, and Bob, you've been heading up that effort to try to gather that information so we can get that study completed. It was delayed somewhat because of the delay in the census, but that's been done, and I know that the department down there has been working hard to try to get that put together for us.
Right, one question I've got, has Dr. Miller reached out to the school districts?
Okay.
Okay, great.
Does Dr. Miller have the CDP number? The 15,861, I think, is the number. That's the population of Hot Springs Village.
Yeah.
CDP.
He
I'm
has
sure he
it.
does.
Yeah, he
Okay, I
has
just
all
want to
that.
make sure he has it, because,
Yeah, he has all the latest census data, population data, and everything else. He was trying to get some information on new building construction, new businesses, things like that. School district attendance, school growth.
I'm also going to provide him some edits to the governance section of the report that Jerry Urich did. I had a meeting with Jerry last February.
Right.
And he gave some edits on that report, and I'll send that to Dr. Miller.
Right. Okay, Sam?
Well, as Richard put it, he says, how's your first days going? Frustrating. He says they had two things they were supposed to be voting on and working on. Of course, one of them Keith mentioned was the redistricting. And he says it's tied up in the Senate, and who knows when it'll get out. He says there's not much moving forward on that right now. The other issue they were supposed to come to some sort of bid, there's a bunch of bills that have been filed for mandating shots. And so that hasn't even made it out of committees because they got so many of these things to go over. He says hopefully next week it'll be better. One of the things he told me was kind of interesting. He says they're already being told that when they come back in October, one of the things they'll really be focusing on addressing is the decreasing state income taxes, money coming in, which to me sounds like a population problem myself. But so I don't know how you address that except raise stuff. But that's the thing that seems like it's going to be the biggest focus coming in October. And he did say that broadband was looking good, and he says Keith probably knows about that. He's already addressed it. So it's kind of a slow start. He's a little frustrated that not much is getting done right now.
Okay.
When you say broadband is looking good, is that the broadband district?
The program, the whole thing.
Okay.
Actually, it's what Keith went over.
yeah, it's,
And his comment was Keith, but Keith probably knows that, so he'll probably just let him cover it.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of money that's gonna be spent in broadband. They're spending a ton of money just on the consultant, so. So there's a lot of money being spent on that, and hopefully we can work through these issues with First Electric.
Well,
Because none of the other providers have expressed really any interest to help us. So, we haven't heard anything recent from Suddenlink, and AT&T basically gave us the Heisman and told us, you're on your own, so.
And Aristotle's attempt to try to get Grant money to come
Yeah,
inside the
it didn't
village,
work.
just to do 25-3,
Right,
just didn't go anyplace, so.
right.
Gotta stress that, he said it's looking good, like it's moving forward because of First Electric.
First Electric is carrying,
That's,
you know,
he,
you got
mentioned
Electric
that.
Cooperative pushing it there.
Unfortunately, it's not gonna help too much with the people on the west side at this point. So that's really the other challenge we have, is because First Electric doesn't cover customers in Garland County. So, they're gonna do Saline County and stop, more or less, it appears, at this point. They were trying to think if there was some way they could
They could get
potentially
into
go into
Garland
that,
County.
but that doesn't look like that's gonna happen anytime soon. So, that's unfortunate, and creates a kind of a further potential divide within the village, which I think is not a good thing at all. So that's something we need to continue to try to figure out if there's something we can do, on the Garland County side to help fix this problem. That's probably something we need to get with the county and, see if we can come up with some idea on something we can do in Garland County to help with that issue.
I think, and Larry's not here, but I think the challenge is motivating besides one of the big ones, Suddenlink or AT&T, is trying to find another person like First Electric to come up into the west side of the village, and it's just not as, they don't,
I know that
Entergy's not gonna
Entergy
get
has
in-
a program
They're
for-
not gonna get into it.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's-
Entergy hasn't even finished doing smart meters, so
Yeah.
they're 20 years behind the rest of the industry and the electric industry as it is today.
I think it's like the Ritters or the Resort Cables to
Right.
get them motivated, but they're not motivated to go after it, to come up to the village.
Right, exactly. Because Suddenlink already has a big portion of that service, so remote cable doesn't have a franchise for that part, and so, it becomes another right-of-way problem, right, on the west side of the village to deal with, and that's a big part of the issue. And AT&T, again, has no real interest in doing anything over there, so that's gonna be a continuing issue, I think, so. Okay, I apologize, but actually I have to leave. I want to turn the meeting over to Bob after this. We've got a huge golf tournament going on, and we talked about the staffing shortage, so today Greg is delivery guy. So I have to go get 125 meals from DeSoto to Isabella by 11 o'clock. So I'm going to let Bob kind of continue on and pass the chair over to him. Next up would be Karen.
Okay.
Mine was really just to ask, again, for your input on speakers as we move forward into the end of this year, and looking forward to getting some good programs in for us. And so I'd love to have any input. And
How about Jason Temple?
I'm sorry,
How about Jason Temple?
Jason Temple? Okay,
I wouldn't bring Jason until after the first of the year,
first of the year, okay,
because maybe some of this stuff will be settled out. He can give a good.
all right.
Thank you, ma'am. Jessieville, how's school going?
Better. We've had a good week.
Good.
We had a good start, not as good as we would have hoped in the spring related to COVID. We had a little bit of a surge there a couple of weeks ago, but our numbers are very well right now, and things are progressing nicely. We opened our school-based health clinic this week, and we've already seen several students and a couple of staff members in our clinic, so we're really happy about that as well.
And Fountain Lake.
As far as COVID and the impact of COVID, we did have a surge with students, and that was pretty much K through 12. The virus has this fall taken a direct hit towards adolescents. And so, curbing that, thank goodness we didn't have any serious injuries, that we are made aware of in either district. So with that, Things are much better. I think we only have 3 active cases currently and only less than 15 students quarantined, where our quarantine numbers exceeded 200. Kind of echoing the group here, we have a labor shortage in the area of food service, bus drivers, teachers, paraprofessionals, all of those areas, and then you combat that with the number of employees that you have to quarantine. There was about a 2-week window where we were going to be able to keep doors open. Food service probably remains to be the greatest concern, just staffing that. Enrollment, as I see the impact of COVID, I would call our enrollment stable. We do have several families that are choosing not to send their children to school. We still have roughly 1,325 students that are enrolled. The overall number of kids coming out of the village is right at 260 from our perspective. Appraisals up roughly 3.5% year over year, so that's been a good thing. When you see homes and things of that nature, what's the end result? It resulted in about a 3.5% increase in the overall assessment within the district. And then the roadway construction is really there in front of the school, and the individual indicated that, I say individual, RDOT's immediate supervisor that I've been communicating with, as soon as they can get the paver off of the expressway, they plan to continue to expand the options at what we call the roundabout. Right now it's the 3-way stop. So with that, as soon as they get a paver back, they're planning on doing some base level paving in front of the school down through there, start the curbs. They said they'd be camping out in front of the school, probably on both sides of the road through January. So it kind of gives you an idea of what's going to be going on down there in that area. It really is going to be great when it's done. Yeah. It's just living through it in the moment and, maintaining egress points in that regard. So you guys mentioned redistricting. We might also add, I had a couple of emails from villagers wanting to know the context of redistricting from a Board of Education perspective, and Garland County has an exemption based on the desegregation clause, and so there is no redistricting. When I've seen some local boards of education, they're also being required to redistrict just like the legislative bodies. So would make you aware of that there is no redistricting going on there. And our board did vote to move forward based on constraints with our facilities. They have put a proposal together, and hopefully this week or next it'll be in the Voice, and you can read the ballot language on it. Looking at a $5 million increase would be voted on in February. Trying to build a new elementary school along with additional high school classrooms, and then grade level reconfiguration in the middle school. So that's everything that I have at this point.
Are all students coming to campus, or are there some doing it virtual?
What both of us chose to do, we looked at, of course, you always kind of look at the impact of virtual learning. And what we found through the impact of virtual learning is you guys have had this elongated discussion about quality connectivity and the challenge of remote education in a rural area. We did not have very much success with children who chose virtual learning for the year. Intermittent virtual learning, we had very limited success in that regard. Many of our parents are working parents, and both of them are working, so there was minimal supervision within the home. So where we were at last spring, seeing a green light moving forward, not anticipating the Delta variant, most of the schools in the county really downscaled the degree of an option virtually and tried to bring all students back on campus, because we have seen such a huge uptick in mental health issues, behavioral issues. We have kids in first grade that basically have not been in school yet. And so just establishing routines, norms, this degree of disruption has had a far greater impact on the educational setting than what people would even try to imagine as it's related to the individual home. So we feel that to address your question, we have created some constraints, and we are very, very selective on virtual learning and almost asking families to choose another type of an option other than public school if they want to choose virtual.
Okay.
And we didn't offer one either.
Okay.
The only time we have any students who are virtual is if they are on quarantine.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and we actually have seen an increase in our student population. We grew about 17 students this year over last year.
Is there anything else from anybody? We want to thank our visitors for coming today. Want to thank, yes, sir.
Could I just mention a couple things?
Sure. Can you give us your name?
When I get there, yeah. This is Roland White. I'm chairman of the Public Works Committee, and the main reason I came today is we have a lot of interest in a number of the issues that you have right here. Keith touched on the first one, which is the American Rescue Funds. And we're looking at the technical side of that, but there's also the legal and organizational side, which I think is going to affect you guys. Because you need, if you're going to organize out there, you need some kind of sewer district or some kind of entity to handle that outside, and then maybe we become a supplier to them by processing their sewers. So I think that's going to touch you a bit in the future, okay? The second thing is $750,000, he's come down a little bit with Jason.
New stuff.
Yeah.
New stuff. This broadband, we have quite a bit of exposure here, I think. If you look at our public utilities group, that we have a lines and tanks group or whatever, a crew, that basically puts in all the grinder tanks, which is about 80 a year if the houses keep going. They're maxed out. We almost need another crew. We have a lines crew that's fixing 2 to 3 leaks a day. They're maxed out. Plus, they're a little bit under strength. So when we start talking about supporting First Electric, our main job is going to be, or two main jobs. One is to locate lines so they don't damage them, and second is to repair them if they do damage them. And be quite honest with you, that's looking at probably 2 dedicated crews. That's around the numbers that we were talking about for that $750,000. And the big, and that's one exposure. So the big question is, where are we going to get these 2 dedicated crews? Because the guys we have working for us right now are full up. And you just heard labor. And this is just not any oh-yay-hoo off the street. You need guys with backhoes that aren't going to bang up the pipe even more, and you need some sophisticated people to locate lines. Fortunately, we're in the East End, where a lot of the lines have like marker wires and stuff, the plastic ones. But there's also a number of places where we're not really sure exactly because of the inaccuracies of drawings where lines are. So there's going to be breaks. But it's going to take a fairly sophisticated crew to find these lines and be with them. So we're really looking, I think, at dedicated people. And that, the second thing is we do have some other exposure. The way these things usually work out, I don't know what the contract's going to be, but what I've seen in the past, if you have, you give them a location of a line, and if it's within 18 inches of where you gave them, that's fine, and they damage it, they fix it. But if it's not, and there's some cases where our drawings have been way off, then we fix it. So we also have other exposure there. And I just don't want to just whiz by this. We have, my personal opinion, I think the Public Services Committee is, we run the risk if we're not careful of being the thing that holds broadband up, because we can't do these services. So we've got to make sure that we support these guys, okay? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned until next month.